Ever feel like you're kind of, I don't know, stuck on autopilot, going through the motions, but not really like present?
You're definitely not alone there.
Yeah, it's like we're always on the go, but not really present for, well, our actual lives. And you know what? Our listeners feel it too, right? That's why they've bombarded us with requests for this deep dive on mindfulness.
And they've sent a ton of research on it. It's incredible.
We're talking a mountain of articles, studies, ancient texts.
Yeah, there's everything here,
Yeah.
from like ancient philosophy to modern neuroscience.
Seriously. So, before we get lost in the weeds,
Yeah,
let's address the big question. Is mindfulness really all it's cracked up to be, or just another wellness fad?
right, because it is everywhere these days.
It's like the wellness buzzword of the year.
It's a valid question, especially with all the hype. What's really interesting, though, is that mindfulness itself isn't new.
Oh, absolutely not.
People have been practicing it for centuries in
Yeah,
various forms across different cultures.
totally.
What's changed is the science. We now have studies showing the benefits of mindfulness, like its ability to rewire our brains for the better.
Rewiring brains, huh? You know, I was looking at one of the studies you flagged, the one that showed mindfulness can actually shrink the amygdala, which is like the brain's stress center, right?
Exactly.
Less stress already sounds amazing, but what else is on the benefits list? What else can it do?
Well, imagine for a second feeling less reactive to those everyday stressors. Mindfulness can help you develop better emotional regulation, which basically gives you the space to choose how you respond rather than just like reacting without thinking.
Okay, now that would come in handy during, say, those high-stakes presentations or those tough conversations, right?
Absolutely. Or even just navigating a regular Tuesday.
Yeah.
And for someone who's always on the hunt for new knowledge, like you clearly are,
Always.
mindfulness can do wonders for your focus and attention. It's like a mental sharpness boost,
Yeah.
making it easier to really absorb and retain information.
Okay, so better focus, less stress, and I get to rewire my brain. Sign me up! But seriously, how do we actually do this mindfulness thing?
Right.
It can't be as simple as, like, just wishing it so, can it?
If only. It does take practice, which is why it's called a mindfulness practice.
Makes sense.
But it's not about adding more to your plate.
Okay, good.
It's more about shifting your approach to what's already there.
I like that. So how do we, like, train our brains to be more mindful? What are the actual techniques?
Well, we'll unpack that in part 2, where we'll explore some surprisingly practical techniques for cultivating mindfulness in everyday life.
All right, you've piqued my curiosity. Let's dive into those techniques. So mindfulness, it's not just about like sitting on a mountaintop chanting, ooh, right?
Definitely not.
And the science behind it, it's pretty amazing stuff. But how do we actually bring this into our everyday lives?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because honestly, some days just like getting out the door feels like a monumental effort.
Totally. And that's a really important point. You see, mindfulness isn't about adding more to our already crazy busy lives. It's about shifting our perspective on what's already there.
Okay, I like that.
One of the articles you shared, I think it compared it to learning an instrument. Like, it takes practice, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like we're not trying to cram in one more thing. We're retraining our brains to be more present in the moment.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some of the techniques, the tools we can use to actually do that, to like strengthen those mindfulness muscles?
Well, in your research, you highlighted the STOP technique, which is a great one.
Oh yeah, the STOP technique, right?
It's really simple,
Mhm.
but super effective, especially when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, and it's an acronym, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you feel yourself getting swept away by stress or anxiety, just remember STOPS.
Yeah.
Stop. Just pause whatever you're doing. T, take a few deep breaths. O verb, just notice what's going on in your body and mind. Your thoughts, feelings, physical sensations. Just observe without judgment.
Mm.
And then P, proceed. You can go back to what you were doing, but with this like renewed sense of awareness.
I like that. That
Yeah.
feels doable, even on those days where you're like running around like crazy. You know, there was another technique that you mentioned that I'm curious about, the body scan meditation. That sounds a
A
little,
little new agey.
yeah, maybe a little bit.
It might sound that way, but it's
Ah.
actually really grounding, really helpful. Basically, you bring your attention to your body, you start with your toes, and you just notice any sensations, you know. Maybe it's tingling, warmth, pressure, maybe even just nothingness.
Mhm.
And you slowly move your attention up through your whole body, just acknowledging each sensation without judgment. It's almost like a mini vacation for your mind.
Oh, I could use a mini vacation. Especially if I can fit it in between, like, meetings and deadlines,
Yeah.
and I can see how that would be helpful, tuning into your body, like, just to interrupt those racing thoughts that we all get when we're stressed.
Absolutely. And, you strike me as someone who's always on the go. You might find this next technique surprisingly helpful.
Okay, lay it on me.
Mindful breathing.
Breathing. Really? I mean, we kinda do that automatically, don't
We
we?
do, but how often do you actually pay attention to your breath?
Yeah, good point.
Mindful breathing is about bringing your attention to the simple act of inhaling and exhaling. Noticing the rise and fall of your chest, how the air feels as it enters and leaves your nostrils. It's a really simple but powerful way to anchor yourself to the present moment.
I remember reading about a study that showed how mindful breathing can actually slow your heart rate and lower your blood pressure. It's kind of amazing that something so simple can have such a big impact.
Absolutely. And the best part, it's available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. You don't need any special equipment or fancy retreat, just a few moments of focused attention. But mindful breathing, well, that's not the only surprising area where mindfulness can be applied. We'll explore how this practice can even transform something as simple as eating a raisin.
Okay, now you have to tell me more about this whole raisin thing. Okay, you left me hanging with this whole mindful eating thing. Last time we talked, I tried, like, scarfing down a salad while I was answering emails, and
I can imagine.
it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, we've all been there. And that's exactly what mindfulness tries to address. Remember, it's not about piling more onto your plate. It's about bringing awareness to what's already there.
Right?
Like you mentioned eating, there was that really cool study out of UCLA you sent over.
Yeah.
They found that mindful eating can actually help reduce those cravings and promote healthier eating habits.
Interesting.
And it all starts with something as simple as, get this, a raisin.
Okay, the raisin exercise, right. I have to admit, when I saw that in the research, I was like, am I really supposed to, like, meditate on a raisin?
It does sound a little out there,
Yeah.
but it's a great way to really illustrate the power of mindful engagement.
Okay.
So the idea is you slow down and you savor a single raisin with all your senses. You look at it, notice the texture, the wrinkles, the color. You smell it. You feel it between your fingers.
Wow.
And then you take a small bite and you pay attention to the flavor, the way it feels in your mouth.
I'm getting it. So it's about really slowing down, actually experiencing the food
Yeah.
instead of just like inhaling it. But how do you apply that to, I don't know, my usual turkey sandwich at lunch? I can't spend an hour eating a sandwich.
You don't have to. It's more about bringing that awareness to your meals, even if it's just for a few bites. Put the phone down, step away from the computer screen, and really be present with your food. Notice the flavors, the textures, the aromas. You might be surprised at what you've been missing.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's not just about food, is it?
No, not at all.
My research notes also mention mindfulness for sleep. And that's something I really struggle with. Like, the minute my head hits the pillow, my mind just takes off with to-do lists.
Oh, you're not alone there.
Mm.
Lots of people say that a busy mind is the biggest hurdle to good sleep.
Ugh, yes.
Remember that 4-7-8 breathing technique we talked about earlier?
Uh-huh.
Really effective for calming your nervous system, getting your body ready for sleep.
Right. Breathe in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. So simple, but it really works.
Exactly. Try doing that for a few minutes before you go to bed and see if it helps to quiet those racing thoughts. And, another thing you could try is a relaxing bedtime routine. Like
Wait.
no screens for an hour before bed, a warm bath, maybe read for a bit. It's about signaling to your mind and body that it's time to unwind.
That sounds way more appealing than counting sheep, I'll tell you that. But, there was one more area where you said mindfulness could be a game changer, relationships. What does mindful communication even look like?
Well, it goes back to being present. Think about it. How often are we only half listening? Or already planning what we're going to say next? Or worse, scrolling through our phones while someone's talking to us?
Oh, I've been guilty of all of those.
We all have. But imagine the difference if we could just let go of those distractions and really listen to the person in front of us, really hear them.
Yeah.
Not just the words, but their tone of voice, their body language, those unspoken things they might be trying to communicate.
It's about making space for someone to feel truly heard, right? Not just waiting for our turn to talk.
Exactly. And, that kind of presence, that genuine interest and attention, that can be incredibly powerful in any relationship, whether it's with a partner, a friend, a family member, even a coworker.
This has been amazing. Honestly, I started this whole deep dive feeling a bit skeptical. but you've convinced me. Mindfulness, it's so much bigger than I realized.
It really is.
It's not about becoming like some kind of Zen master. It's about bringing awareness to our everyday lives, the way
Hmm.
we eat, the way we breathe, the way we interact with others.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about being perfect at it.
Right.
It's a journey. And the best part is, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Find what works for you, what feels natural and sustainable.
I love that. So to our listeners, I'll leave you with this. Where in your life do you feel that pull toward more presence?
That's such a good question.
Is it in savoring your morning coffee? Having a heart-to-heart conversation? Getting through that stressful commute with a little more peace? The journey starts with a single mindful breath.
And who knows, that one breath might unlock a world of possibilities.
It really might. Until next time, be present and keep exploring.